The alarm woke from a dreamless sleep. She rolled out of her small bed and was on her feet before her eyes fully opened. After 12 years in space, her body knew what to do before her mind caught up. She was the captain of a patrol ship that watched the outer edges of Earth's solar system. It was not an exciting job. Most days nothing happened. They watched. They waited. They sent reports that no one read. But today was different. Reached the bridge in 40 seconds. Her crew was already there, staring at the main screen with wide eyes. On it was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was large, maybe 3 times the size but it was broken. Smoke poured from holes in its side. Pieces of metal floated around it like leaves in autumn. "What is it?" asked. Her second officer, a young man named, shook his head. "We don't know, Captain. It's not human, the design. We've never seen anything like it." Not human. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Humanity had been alone in the universe for all of history. They had sent signals into the darkness for 100 years and heard nothing back. Now, on a quiet Tuesday morning, the answer had finally come. And it was dying. Moved closer to the screen. She could see the ship more clearly now. Strange symbols were painted on its hull. Lights flickered inside, weak and fading. As she watched, another explosion tore through the back of the vessel and more debris scattered into space. "Life signs?" she asked. The science officer, a woman named Bora, worked her controls quickly. Her face went pale. "Captain, I'm reading over 800 life signs. They're packed together in the forward section. The rest of the ship is gone, no air, no heat. They're all that's left." 800 lives. Felt the weight of that number settle on her shoulders. "They're sending a signal," said suddenly. "Audio only, should I play it?" Nodded. The bridge filled with a strange sound, clicks and whistles that made no sense. But underneath the alien words, heard something she understood perfectly. Fear, desperation, a plea for help that needed no translation. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. Silence returned. Crew looked at her. She could see the question in their eyes. What do we do? The answer should have been simple. They were a patrol ship with a crew of 32. They had no weapons worth mentioning. Earth had no allies, no defense against whatever had attacked this vessel. If they helped these aliens, they might bring that same enemy to their home. Every protocol said to stay away, report the contact, wait for orders, let someone else make the hard choice. Thought about her grandmother. She had been a child during the Korean War when her country was torn apart. Strangers from across the ocean had come to help people who had no reason to care, no benefit to gain. They came anyway. They died anyway, because they saw people in need and could not look away. Her grandmother had told those stories 100 times. "Remember," she always said, "remember what it means when someone helps you for no reason. That is the thing in the universe. Never forget it, and never fail to pass it on." Made her choice. "Bring us alongside," she said. "Prepare the docking tube. Bora, get the medical bay ready. We're taking survivors." Stared at her. "Captain, we don't have authorization." "I know. The protocols say." "I know what the protocols say." Turned to face him. "I also know that there are 800 people on that ship who are going to die if we do nothing. I will not watch that happen. I will not explain to my grandmother's ghost why I let strangers die in the dark because I was afraid." She looked at her crew one by one. "Anyone who wants to object can file a report when we get home. Right now, we have work to do." No one objected. They moved closer to the dying ship. The docking was difficult. The alien vessel was not designed to connect with human technology, but was clever, and after 20 minutes of careful work, he made it happen. The door opened. Was the first one through. She had expected many things. Monsters, maybe, creatures from nightmares. Instead, she found something that broke her heart. They were small, shorter than humans, with soft gray skin and large dark eyes. They wore simple clothes, torn and stained with blood. Many were injured, some were dying, and they were afraid, so terribly afraid. When they saw, they pulled back. Mothers held children close. The weak tried to protect the weaker. They had been running from something, and now they expected the worst. Held up her empty hands. She did not know their language. She did not know their customs. But she knew that fear was the same everywhere. "It's okay," she said softly. "We're here to help. You're safe now." They did not understand her words, but they understood her voice. They understood the way she knelt down to their level, making herself smaller. They understood the tears in her eyes. A child stepped forward. She was tiny, maybe 5 years old by human standards. Her arm was burned and she was shaking, but she looked at with those big dark eyes and reached out her hand. Took it gently. "My name is," she said. "What's yours?" The child made a sound, soft and musical. "Taylai," she whispered. Smiled. "Hello, Taylai. Let's get you somewhere warm." Over the next 6 hours, the crew of the worked without rest. They carried the injured. They shared their food. They gave up their beds. 847 survivors. That was the final count. 847 lives that would have ended in the cold darkness of space. When Earth Command finally responded to his report, they were furious. She had broken protocol. She had risked humanity's safety. She had made first contact without permission. Listened to their anger. Then she asked a simple question. What kind of people would we be if we turned away? The line went silent. In the end, they let her keep her command. The survivors, though they called themselves, were given shelter on a quiet moon. They shared what little technology they had. They tried to repay a debt they could never truly repay. And Taylai, the little girl with the burned arm, grew up telling stories about the human woman who had saved her people. The woman who had held her hand in the darkness and promised that everything would be okay. The galaxy forgot about they were small, they were unimportant. But humanity did not forget. They never would. 200 years had passed since the day Captain saved the. In that time, humanity had grown beyond anything those first space travelers could have imagined. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, the largest ship humanity had ever built. Through the massive windows, he could see the stars stretching out forever. Behind him, 300 other ships waited in formation, the heart of the Terran Alliance fleet. He was an old man now, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes, but his back was straight and his mind was sharp. Before he became a soldier, he had been a historian. He believed that the past was not dead. It lived in every choice people made. In his private quarters kept a single photograph. It showed a young woman in a simple uniform, shaking hands with a small gray alien. Captain, his great-great-grandmother, the woman who had changed everything. Often looked at that picture when he needed to remember why he did this job. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Humanity had learned that lesson quickly. There were old empires out there, vast and powerful and cruel. The Dominion was the worst of them. They had conquered 1,000 worlds over 10,000 years. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they did not need. Many species had warned humanity to stay small, stay quiet, do not attract attention. The Dominion noticed everything, and what they noticed they consumed. But humanity had chosen a different path. Remembered the day he had first read about that choice in his history classes. After the rescue, Earth had faced a decision. They could hide and hope the galaxy passed them by, or they could step forward and become something new. They chose to step forward. The Terran Alliance was not the largest power in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. Their weapons were good but not great. Their ships were fast but not the fastest. What they had was something rarer, a reputation. As communication officer, a young woman named, turned from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal, coordinates in the outer reach. A colony ship has been hit by an asteroid field." "How many on board?" asked. 12,000. They're a mining species. Their engines are dead and they're drifting toward a gas giant. They have maybe 6 hours. Did not hesitate. Set a course. All ships maximum speed. Looked at him. "Sir, they are not part of any alliance. They've never helped us. They've never even spoken to us." "I know," said. "Plot the course anyway." This was what the Terran Alliance did. This was who they were. It had started small. A research station running out of supplies. A colony hit by disease. A ship lost in dangerous space. Humanity had helped. Not for payment. Not for treaties. Not for political advantage. They helped because people needed help and they could give it. Word spread. In the hidden corners of the galaxy, among the species that had nothing and no one, a story began to grow. The humans will come. It sounded like a legend. It sounded too good to be true, but the stories kept coming. A plague on Prime, the humans sent medical ships. An earthquake on Tellan, the humans sent rescue teams. A war between two small systems, the humans sent diplomats who talked both sides into peace. The great empires laughed at this. The Dominion called humanity weak and foolish. "They waste their strength on charity," the Dominion said. "They will learn that kindness is a luxury only the powerful can afford, and they are not powerful." But the empires were wrong. Understood something they did not. Every species humanity helped remembered. Every life they saved became a friend. Every act of kindness built trust that no weapon could create and no threat could destroy. The Terran Alliance had no subjects. They had no conquered peoples, but they had something better. They had friends everywhere. The Eternal Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the colony ship, could see the damage immediately. Half the vessel was torn open. Debris floated around it like a cloud of broken dreams. "Begin rescue operations," he ordered. "All ships launch shuttles. I want every survivor off that ship in 3 hours." The work was hard and dangerous. Some of them were trapped in sections with no air. Others were injured and could not move. Human rescue teams cut through metal walls and carried the wounded to safety on their backs. Watch from the bridge as the numbers climbed. 1,000 saved, 5,000, 8,000. A message came from the captain, a gruff voice full of confusion. "Why are you doing this? We have nothing to give you. We are nobody." Smiled sadly. He had heard this question 100 times. 200 years ago, he said, my ancestors were nobody too. A dying ship came to them, full of strangers asking for help. They gave it freely. Those strangers had nothing to offer except their gratitude, but that gratitude meant everything. He paused. "We do this because someone did it for us once. We do this because it is right. That is all the reason we need." The captain was silent for a long moment. Then his voice came back, thick with emotion. "We will not forget this, human. My people will not forget." "I know," said, "neither will we." 11,843 survivors. That was the final count. Almost everyone. The dead were mourned. The living were grateful. 3 months later, they signed a friendship treaty with the Terran Alliance. They had little to offer, some mining rights, some technical knowledge, but they offered everything they had. Kept a record of every such treaty. There were 97 of them now. 97 species bound to humanity not by force, but by gratitude. 97 peoples who would answer if humanity ever needed help. Some of the great empires were beginning to worry. The Dominion watched humanity's growing network of friends with cold, calculating eyes. They did not understand it. How could such a weak species build such influence without conquest? They called humanity naive. They called them soft. They called them fools playing at politics. But knew the truth. Kindness was not weakness. Mercy was not stupidity. The Terran Alliance was building something that no amount of ships or weapons could build. They were building trust. And one day, that trust would matter more than anything else in the galaxy. In his quarters that night, looked at the photograph of Captain. She had been dead for 150 years, but her choice lived on. Every ship that flew under the Terran flag, every rescue mission, every act of aid, it all flowed from that single moment when a young captain decided to help strangers in need. "I hope I'm making you proud," said to the photograph. He could almost see her smile. Somewhere out there on a quiet moon, the still lived. They had grown to 12 million now. They had built cities and schools and hospitals. They named their children after human heroes, and they taught their young the story of the. They had not forgotten either. No one who had ever been touched by humanity's kindness had forgotten. That was the power of remembrance. That was the strength of those who repaid their debts. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would see just how strong that power could be. Was old. Her gray skin had turned pale with age and her movements were slow, but her mind was still sharp and her memory was perfect. That was both a blessing and a curse. She remembered the fire. 300 years ago, when she was just a child named Talai, she had watched her burn. The Dominion had come without warning. Their ships filled the sky like a plague of insects. They gave no demands. They made no offers. They simply began killing. Talai's parents had put her on the last evacuation ship. She remembered her mother's face, calm and loving even as the world ended behind her. "Be brave," her mother had said. "Live, remember us." The ship had run for weeks. The Dominion followed. One by one, the other refugee ships were destroyed. Finally, only Talai's ship remained, broken and dying, drifting into unknown space. And then the humans had come. She had taken a new name when she came of age, touched the scar on her arm. It had faded over the centuries, but she could still feel it. The burn she had received during the escape. The wound that Captain had treated with such gentle hands. "You're safe now," had said. "We're here to help." Those words had stayed with for 300 years. They had shaped her entire life. She had become a historian because she believed that memory mattered. She had spent her long life teaching young about the humans who had saved them. Now she was the oldest alive, the last one who remembered the burning. And the Dominion had found them again. Sat in her study, staring at the message on her screen. She had intercepted it 3 hours ago using an old communication system that the Dominion did not know about. The words were simple and terrible. Target species located. Colony Moon designation VR7. Population 12 million. Classification Extermination Priority. Fleet assignment 400 warships. Objective No survivors. No survivors. The same orders they had given 300 years ago. The Dominion never changed. They never forgot. And they never forgave the crime of survival. Closed her eyes. She thought about the children in the schools, the families in their homes, the young couples planning their futures. 12 million lives, and the Dominion wanted to erase them all. She had lived through this once. She could not live through it again. But maybe she did not have to. Rose from her chair and walked to a locked cabinet in the corner of her study. Inside was a small device, old and dusty, its technology outdated by centuries. It was a transmitter given to them by humanity after the rescue, a gift that came with a simple message. "If you ever need us, call, we will come." No one had ever used it. They did not want to be a burden. They did not want to ask for help from people who had already given so much. They had hidden on their quiet moon and tried to stay invisible. But there was no hiding now. Activated the transmitter. She did not know if it still worked. She did not know if anyone was still listening. But she spoke anyway, pouring 300 years of gratitude and fear and hope into her words. "This is of the 300 years ago your captain saved my people from extinction. We have never forgotten. Now the Dominion has found us again. They are coming with 400 ships. They mean to finish what they started." Her voice broke. She took a breath and continued. "We have no weapons. We have no fleet. We have only this message and the memory of your kindness. Please, if anyone can hear this, please help us, please." She turned off the transmitter and sat down heavily. The message would travel across the galaxy, weak and flickering, a tiny voice in an infinite darkness. She did not know if anyone would hear it. 12,000 light-years away, on a planet called Earth, an alarm began to sound. The Hall of Remembrance was a quiet place. It was built of white stone and filled with soft light. On its walls were the names of every person humanity had ever helped. Millions of names, organized by species and date, stretching back 200 years. In the center of the hall was a single display case. Inside was the original logbook from the open to the page where Captain had written, 847 survivors recovered, species unknown. They needed help. We gave it. The alarm came from a small device beneath the display case. It was old, older than most of the staff who worked in the hall. No one had touched it in generations. No one had expected it to ever make a sound. But now it was screaming. The signal reached Admiral in his quarters aboard the Eternal Dawn. He was reading when his communication officer's voice interrupted him. "Admiral, we've received a transmission. Priority 1, Sir, it's the..." His book fell from his hands. He had never met them. They were a quiet people who kept to themselves. But he knew their story better than anyone. It was his family's story too. "Play it," he said. His voice filled the room, old and afraid but still strong, still hopping. The words cut into his heart like knives. "They mean to finish what they started. We have no weapons. We have no fleet. Please help us, please." The message ended. Sat in silence for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the photograph of Captain. He looked at her face, young and determined, the face of someone who had seen strangers in need and refused to look away. He knew what she would do. He knew what he had to do. Walk to the bridge. His crew snapped to attention as he entered. He looked at them, these young men and women who had chosen to serve something greater than themselves. "All ships," he said, his voice steady and calm. "Emergency mobilization. I want every vessel in the fleet ready to move in 12 hours. We are going to the colony." His tactical officer, a man named, looked up in surprise. "Sir, they are on the other side of the galaxy, and if the Dominion is sending 400 ships..." "I know," said. "We would be going against the largest empire in the galaxy. They have never lost a battle." "I know." Sir hesitated. "Why? They have nothing to offer us. They're not part of any alliance. Politically, strategically, there's no benefit." "Lieutenant," his voice was quiet but firm. 300 years ago, a young captain named found a dying ship full of strangers. She was told to stay away. She was told there was no benefit. She helped anyway. And because of that choice, humanity became something better than we were before." He looked at the stars through the bridge window. They called for help. They believed we would come. They trusted us with their lives because one human, 3 centuries ago, proved that we were worth trusting. He turned back to his crew. "I will not betray that trust. I will not prove their faith wrong. Every species in this galaxy is watching to see what we do next. If we turn away now, we tell them all that human kindness has limits, that our word means nothing, that we are exactly what the Dominion says we are, weak, foolish, and alone." His voice rose. "But if we answer this call, we tell them something else. We tell them that humanity remembers, that our debts are not forgotten, that when we say we will come, we mean it." He straightened his shoulders. "So yes, we are going to fight the Dominion. We are going to protect and we are going to show this galaxy what it truly means to be human." The bridge was silent. Then one by one his crew began to nod. "Set a course," ordered. "They are calling, humanity answers." The Eternal Dawn turned toward the distant stars. And across the galaxy, the message spread. "The humans are coming. The Dominion fleet arrived at the colony like a wave of darkness. 400 warships, each one massive and terrible, carrying enough weapons to burn worlds. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unhurried. They had done this 1,000 times before. Grand Admiral stood on the command deck of his flagship, looking at the small moon below. It was pretty in a simple way. Blue oceans, green forests, cities that sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. Soon it would all be ash. Status report said. The colony is undefended, his tactical officer replied. No weapons platforms, no fleet. They have a few transport ships, nothing more. This will be quick. Smiled, they had run once before, 300 years ago. They had hidden on the edge of known space and thought they were safe. They were wrong. The Dominion never forgot. The Dominion never forgave. And the Dominion always finished what it started. Begin the attack, ordered. His ships moved forward. And then they stopped. Sir, the tactical officer's voice had changed. There was fear in it now. Sir, I'm detecting new contacts, many new contacts. What, from where? Everywhere, sir. They're coming out of faster-than-light travel all around us. Stared at his display as the numbers climbed. 100 ships, 300, 500, 1,000. 2,000. The new fleet was human. Could tell by their design, simple and functional, without the elegant curves the Dominion preferred. They were smaller than Dominion warships, but there were so many of them. They kept coming, more and more, filling the space around his fleet like stars appearing at sunset. When the last ship arrived, the humans had completely surrounded the Dominion force. They outnumbered 5-1. Impossible, whispered. The humans cannot have this many ships, our intelligence said. Sir, we're receiving a transmission, all frequencies. A woman's voice filled the command deck. She spoke clearly and calmly, without anger or fear. Would remember that voice for the rest of his life. Dominion Fleet, this is Fleet Commander of the Terran Alliance. The colony below is under our protection. Paused, the silence stretched out. 300 years ago there were strangers who needed help. A human captain named gave it freely. She asked for nothing. She expected nothing. She simply saw beings in need and chose to help. Those strangers are not strangers anymore. They are family. You have one chance to leave. We suggest you take it. Felt his hands shake. This was not possible. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be foolish idealists playing at power. They were not supposed to bring 2,000 warships to defend a species that could offer them nothing. They're bluffing, said, but his voice was uncertain. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, I'm reading their weapons signatures. They're not bluffing. Their weapons are armed and targeted, all of them. Looked at his display again. 2,000 ships, every one of them aimed at his fleet. For a long moment he considered retreating. He could report this to the Dominion Council and return with a larger force. It would be the smart choice, the safe choice. But the Dominion did not retreat. The Dominion had never retreated. To run from these humans would be the greatest shame in the history of the Empire. They are bluffing, said again, trying to convince himself. They will not sacrifice their fleet for a worthless species. Attack. All ships attack now. The Dominion fleet surged forward. Watched them come from the bridge of the sunrise. She was young for a fleet commander, only 42, but she had trained for this moment her entire life. Her grandfather had served under Admiral. Her mother had commanded rescue missions to a dozen worlds. Serving others was in her blood. They're attacking, her tactical officer said. Nodded, she had hoped they would leave. She had prayed they would leave, but she had known deep in her heart that they would not. All ships, she said, weapons free, protect the colony, protect our family. The battle began. In the first minute, 30 Dominion ships exploded. The humans fought with a fury that shocked their enemies. These were not soldiers fighting for conquest or glory. These were people defending their loved ones. Every ship knew that 12 million were counting on them. Every crew member understood what defeat would mean. They did not give an inch. Watched in horror as his fleet began to crumble. Human ships swarmed around his larger vessels like insects, striking weak points with perfect precision. When one human ship was destroyed, two more took its place. They did not run. They did not hesitate. They threw themselves at his fleet with an intensity he had never seen before. "This is impossible," he said. "They cannot want this so badly. They are nothing. They have nothing to offer. Sir, we've lost 100 ships, 150, 200. The numbers kept climbing. His fleet was being torn apart. Across the galaxy, every species with a communication system was watching. The battle was being broadcast on all frequencies, and no one could look away. They watched the humans, a young species, a small species, a species that the great empires had dismissed as irrelevant, stand against the Dominion and refuse to break. They watched. They remembered the day the humans had saved their colony ship. They watched. They remembered the human doctors who had cured their plague. 40 other species watched. Each one had a story. Each one had been touched by human kindness at their darkest hour. And as they watched, something changed. They began to believe. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Dominion fleet was shattered. 312 of their ships were destroyed. The survivors fled into faster-than-light travel, running from a species they had called weak and foolish. The humans had lost too. 400 ships destroyed, 12,000 sailors dead. It was a terrible price paid in blood and grief. But the colony still stood. 12 million lives saved because humanity had kept its promise. Fleet Commander stood on her bridge looking at the wreckage floating in space. Her face was tired. Her heart was heavy. So many had died. So many would never go home. But they had won. A message came from the Dominion flagship. Grand Admiral's voice was hoarse with rage and confusion. "Why?" he demanded. "Why would you sacrifice so much for them? They are nothing. They have nothing. You gain nothing from this." Thought about her grandfather's stories. She thought about Captain and the. She thought about 300 years of kindness, passed down from generation to generation like a sacred flame. "Because they helped us once," she said. "When we were small and afraid and alone, they asked for nothing in return. They simply gave what they could." She paused. "Humanity does not forget kindness. We repay it. That is who we are. That is who we will always be." She cut the transmission. Below on the colony, 12 million people looked up at the sky. They saw the human ship still circling above them, standing guard, keeping them safe. Stood in the doorway of her home, tears streaming down her ancient face. 300 years ago, a human woman had taken her hand and promised that everything would be okay. Today, humanity had kept that promise. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The news of the Battle of Prime spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every species knew what had happened. Within days, everything began to change. The Dominion had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They had conquered because no one believed they could be stopped. They had enslaved because no one dared to resist. But now everyone had seen them run. The first rebellion began on a mining world called. The workers there had served the Dominion for generations, digging ore from the ground and watching their children die in the tunnels. They had accepted their suffering because they believed there was no alternative. Then they heard about the humans. The uprising lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Dominion garrison was destroyed and the miners were free. They sent a message to the Terran Alliance. "We saw what you did for the. We decided to fight for ourselves. Thank you for showing us it was possible." More rebellions followed. Some succeeded, some failed, but the flame had been lit and it would not be put out. Across 1,000 worlds, people who had given up hope began to hope again. The Dominion tried to crush the uprisings. They sent their fleets and their armies, but they were stretched thin, and their enemies were everywhere. Species that had been conquered for centuries suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Within 10 years, the Dominion had lost half their empire. Within 20 years, they were fighting for survival. And humanity did not seek to replace them. Admiral had died 2 years after the battle, peacefully, in his sleep, with the photograph of Captain on his bedside table. But before he died, he had proposed something that no one had ever tried before. He called it the Galactic Compact. The idea was simple. Every species that joined would promise to help the others. If one member faced disaster, the others would come. If one member was attacked, the others would defend. Not through force, not through conquest, through trust. Many laughed at the idea. It was too idealistic, they said. It would never work. Species were selfish. They looked out for themselves. But the species who had been touched by human kindness did not laugh. They remembered the ships that had come to save them. They remembered the strangers who had risked everything for nothing. They signed the compact. 47 species in the end. 47 peoples bound together not by fear or power, but by gratitude and trust. It was the largest alliance in galactic history, and it had no emperor, no council of conquest. It had only a promise: we will not face the darkness alone. Fleet Commander stood on the stage of the Great Hall, watching the representatives sign the final documents. She was older now, gray in her hair, lines on her face, but her eyes were still sharp and her heart was still full. Beside her sat. The ancient was impossibly old now, supported by machines that kept her body working when nature said it should stop. But she had insisted on being here. She had refused to die before seeing this moment. When the last signature was complete, the crowd rose to their feet and cheered. Help stand, and together they walked to the center of the stage. Above them hung a banner. On it were words that had chosen herself, the words that Captain had spoken 300 years ago, when she made the choice that changed everything. What kind of people would we be if we turned away? Looked at the banner, tears rolled down her face. I wish she could see this, said. Her voice was weak but clear. Captain, I wish she could see what her kindness became. Squeezed her hand gently. I think she knows. Somehow I think she knows. The representatives asked to speak. She had not planned to. She had thought she was too old, too tired, too unimportant. But when she saw their faces, all those different species, all those different lives, all looking at her with respect and gratitude, she knew she had to try. They helped her to the podium. She looked out at the crowd and took a shaking breath. When I was a child, she began, a human woman I had never met risked everything to save my people. She asked for nothing. She expected nothing. She simply saw beings in need and chose to help. Her voice grew stronger. I have lived for 300 years. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen cruelty that broke my heart and courage that healed it. But in all that time, I have never seen anything more powerful than what Captain did that day. She looked at the humans in the crowd, so many of them, so different from each other, but all united by a single idea. That is what humanity taught the galaxy. That kindness is not weakness. That mercy is not foolishness. That the measure of a species is not how they treat the powerful, but how they treat the forgotten. Her voice rang out across the hall. They remembered us when no one else did. They came for us when no one else would. And today, because of their example, 47 species stand together and promise to do the same. She smiled, a small, tired smile but full of peace. I have lived long enough to see a better galaxy. I have lived long enough to know that one act of kindness can change everything. I have lived long enough to say thank you to the humans who saved me. She turned to and bowed her head. Thank you for everything, forever. The hall exploded in applause. Died 3 days later. She passed quietly, surrounded by friends from a dozen different species. Her last words were a name, spoken with love and gratitude. They buried her on the not the moon where she had grown up, but the original planet, reclaimed and healed after 3 centuries of emptiness. She was laid to rest beside a monument to Captain, where both of them could watch the stars together. 1,000 years passed. Humanity grew old. They became one of the elder species of the galaxy, wise and respected. Their ships no longer flew to every disaster. There were others to carry that duty now. But the example they had set lived on. In schools across 100 worlds, children learned the story of the. They learned about a young captain who saw strangers in need and refused to look away. They learned about a species that remembered its debts for 3 centuries and then crossed the galaxy to repay them. They learned the lesson that humanity had taught. Kindness matters. Memory matters. The smallest act of compassion can echo through time forever. And when those children grew up, they carried that lesson with them. They helped strangers. They remembered kindness. They built a galaxy where no one faced the darkness alone. This is the legacy of humanity, not their ships, not their weapons, not their technology. Their heart, their memory, their unshakable belief that every life matters, that every kindness counts, that the measure of a people is found in what they do when they have nothing to gain. Once humanity was small and alone. A dying species asked for help and humans gave it freely. They were repaid with nothing but gratitude. And when that debt came due, humanity crossed the galaxy to honor it. This is why the galaxy remembers them. This is why the galaxy trusts them. This is why, when the darkness comes, the people of 100 worlds look to the stars and whisper the same words their ancestors whispered 1,000 years before. Call the humans. Because humanity remembers. And humanity comes. Always. Forever. Until the last star goes dark.